So, Diva Moment 10.
Lady in the street, diva in the seat. She's a truckin' lady, truckin' lady.
So, in this Diva Moment, I'm just going to talk about a decision I made to decide to become an instructor, a CDL instructor slash trainer and trainee. Uh, the first thing is the CDL instructor is the beginning stages student comes to prime with just their permit, and I have to teach them the skills they need to basically back their pre-trip drive on the drive for their road test, basically for them to get their CDL. Trainer and trainee is basically when I take a newly CDL student on the road for 30,000 miles. Well, um, I had been mulling over the idea for some time. I had not really wanted to due to some prior not so good experiences with uh, a co-driver, actually two co-drivers, um, that were newly licensed, only had their license for, and they had been through the TNT program. They were newly licensed, but they had been on their own or they had just got out of training and just upgraded. And um, at that point, they became full on drivers. And um, that was a unique experience because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into at that time. I did not expect to have to really be a trainer. I wasn't trained to be a trainer. I just knew how to be safe and I knew how to do certain things pretty well thanks to the training that I had from my trainer. And so I decided that I would never going to become a trainer unless I was going to train my husband. Like if we ever decided to team together. Of course, that was before he had medical issues that prevented him from doing uh, team driving with me. So the decision came for me to at least try it. It's kind of like a promotion in a sense because now I'm looked at more as an instructor, a trainer, somebody that has, experience. Um, a lot of drivers don't look at it as like a big deal, but for me, I do because I'm using my skills, my knowledge to pass on to somebody else, and I can help mold them to be the safe driver as well, at least the best that I can. So I decided back in January after talking it over and talking it over with my husband, talking it over with my trainer that I'm still good friends with to this day. And um, finally, my fleet manager said, "Hey, you can, just letting you know we need instructors, we need trainers. You qualify for both because they passed a law sometime last year that in order to be a CDL instructor, you have had to have at least 2 years over the road experience. And I think to be a trainer in the TNT program, you have to be like at least 6 to 9 months, something like that in that range. You have to be in one of those. Don't quote me on that 100% because when I came through the instructor's course, I really wasn't paying attention to all the training TNT like requirements because I was focused on PSD, which is a whole different track. So I was able to finally That was like one of the things I wanted to do when I turned 40 was do something to help push my goals and my careers along, like my career goals and my plans along. So I said, you know what, let me do something I'd never really planned on doing. So the week that I turned 40, I took the CDL instructor course slash trainer course because they're together, but the CDL instructor course is a little longer, of course, because we got more things that we have to learn. Now, what I will say is I did enjoy being able to, I did enjoy being able to kind of hone my skills and refresh myself. It was almost like a refresher. It's like all the stuff I learned in the beginning, stuff I know, but it's like you don't like remember every single thing until it comes time to have to use it. And it's like I knew like for the pre-trip, there's like probably like 80 things that between the tractor and the trailer, the end cap, you know, the different areas on the pre-trip that you have to learn. You know, I have to be able to help a student memorize these things. Now, I'll say 80% of it is on the student, but also the other 20% of it rather is on the instructor because you have to be able to help them. If they're not good at memorization or understanding where these parts are, you have to show them, be able to show them, be able to help them find ways to remember them. So, that's not always an easy task. So, after I went through the refresher course and went through some of the pre-trip knowledge and stuff like that again, it really uh, reminded me of how, let's say, how in depth and how important it is to train a student the correct way. So I wanted to make sure my student understood the reasons why we did a pre-trip, because it could save you down the road, and the importance on how often to do it. I also want to teach them the safe driving, uh, driving in certain conditions, different roadways, highways, city routes, state highways, through inclement weather, nighttime, truck stops, that type of stuff, um, and also how to back. You know, I need at least enough for them to understand how to control a tractor trailer, how to maintain control of your tractor trailer, when to know and how to know how much you need to turn that wheel. It all, of course, all comes with practice and practice and practice. Because when I started out, after a while, I mean, I was able to get most of my backing down for the most part. But when it came to the test, that alley dock, because there's technically what, five maneuvers. There's what, five, no, six maneuvers that each student has to learn. Now on the test, they only have to do three, but you have to know six maneuvers. And that consists of straight line backing, offset to the left or offset to the right. Then you got parallel to the left, parallel to the right, and then you got the alley dock. So I got all the other maneuvers, but alley dock was like the hardest one. But after being out here for so long, that's primarily the one you use the most outside of straight line, to get in some docks. So now I can get it in the box without a problem. So after I went through my instructor's course, I had to go through evaluation. The truck had to be ready for a student because I was picking up my first student that same week. Um, so they inspected my truck. I had to do an air brake, an in caps, and an air brake inspection, and I had to demonstrate I think, an offset, and I had to demonstrate an offset or a parallel and the alley dock. And the crazy part is, I didn't realize that, yeah, I can do these maneuvers, but to teach somebody, like, I'd never had to do that before. Like, even with when I had my first two my first two co-drivers, um, I didn't have that issue with having to explain to them 100% like how to, manipulate the trailer, how to control it and all that stuff, because they had some knowledge. They had a lot more knowledge than someone either that doesn't have a license at all or had never driven a tractor trailer. So um, I knew how to show somebody how to get in there and tell them how they need to turn their wheel, but how to explain it in a way to someone that's never done it, that was the challenge for me. So luckily, I was able to talk to a few other instructors out there, kind of get their perspective. Of course, Prime has um, some ways to kind of help with maneuvers, and there's references that you could use that are on the trailer or on the pad to use to help the student to recognize if their trailer is going in the right direction or not. So uh, that was easy. But when you're out there, like, I took my PSD on the road, not every PSD goes like over the road. They might go on the road for a short trip, but they don't sleep in the truck. So I had my student on the road for about I want to say like about 5,000 miles or so, maybe 6,000 miles before she came back to test, because you got to hold your permit for 14 days before you can come back and test. So out there in the real world, it's like hard. You can't use those same reference points and tricks, I guess you want to say, um, that's on the pad out in the real world. So I had to learn how to be able to explain it to someone that's never done it. And I was lucky to have my first student that was picking up very well. The funny part was she never knew when we were going uphill. She also never knew. She also never knew like when we were going downhill. But she experienced some inclement weather. She experienced fog. She experienced some interesting road conditions. She experienced getting off the highway, driving on city roads, all that stuff, going into shippers and receivers, different things, backing into truck stops, backing into quite a few docks. I think she backed into like three or four. Most of the docks. Most of the time she was backing into the docks. I had her backing as much as possible. Now, if it was like a dock that was not going to help her pass her test, I was not going to worry about that, because that's my job as a PSD instructor, is to train the student to pass the test. I would intermittently, once she was picking up the things she needed to pick up, if she wasn't getting overwhelmed, I did show her some other things to complete the job. But the misconception is that, oh, when she's with a PSD instructor, or when your student's with a PSD instructor, that they are supposed to learn the job. They can learn some of the job, like fueling, maybe doing the arrival, departure macros, filling out a trip sheet, scanning in certain things, scanning in bills, and all that stuff. That's, fine, but it's not like a requirement. For the first week that she was on my truck, it was strictly her doing driving, backing, and pre-trip. That was what she needed. That's what she needed to learn. That was her job at the time, was to learn those things, because that's what she needed to pass the test. And me teaching somebody how to do stuff on the job is not going to help her pass her test. Um, so as she was starting to pick up stuff, and as she was uh, understanding how to do certain things and getting more confident, like her pre-trip, she got that. She got that.
You're on with A Truckin Lady here, and that means you're listening to me through YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast from. In my podcast, I've shared so far my experiences as a trucker coming into this industry, and I have so much more to share. But if I've inspired you to take that leap to become a truck driver yourself, I want you to join me here at Prime. Here, you will get your training, your experience, knowledge, and expertise from some of the greatest drivers out there on the road, not to mention the safest. If you don't believe me, you can look up primeinc.com, contact a recruiter at 1-877-491-1108. Give them my driver referral code, ALLSIA. We hope to see you rolling next to us on the road.
As she was doing her pre-trip, like she was getting that down rather quickly. She would get her pre-trip down within a matter of like the first day she got the whole engine compartment. The first day she got the whole engine compartment. Um, I have a way of helping people remember, basically. So, um, so as I saw she was learning, she was also one thing too. I love when students take initiative, even trainees take initiative. Do things on your own. Don't wait for me to have to suggest something. Do some learn. Want to ask to do stuff on your own, or get stuff done on your own. So she was doing that. I was here out there with her pre-trip sheet. She sit out there and be going through it, whatever like that, asking questions, all that. So once week 2 came, it was like, okay, we can start adding on a little more and more. You know, as I see she's doing her in-cab and air brakes inspection, like pretty much she understands the gist of it. Still needed some minor coaching, but she understood the gist of it. She knew the steps. So it was, progressing. So when it was coming back time to test, I was more nervous than she was at first. But she was getting the maneuvers. Like we had tried to do some pad time while we were at the terminal in Pittston, but my truck had to unfortunately go in the shop. And where their Freightliner is, it's kind of far, and they don't have a shuttle that goes out there anymore. So it was just kind of an inconvenience. So we just stayed at a hotel near the shop. I was down longer than I wanted to be, so I just said, you know what, we'll get pad time another time. So we came in an extra like day and a half early to get some pad time in. So she only had like maybe 4 hours of pad time before we left. And she basically got the straight line back before we left. She did an offset and one offset. No, she did both offsets and then she did one parallel. So we still had the other parallel and the alley dock to go over, but she needed to practice all of them. But she could straight line back like anything, so it wasn't a problem. But I also watched her out in the field, so I knew like she got the concept of how to maneuver her trailer. That wasn't the issue. It was just teaching her, because I think it's like almost like a catch 22. When you're a pad student, you learn the backing maneuvers to pass the test, great. But when it comes out to the real world, you can't use the same. You can use the same maneuvers, but you can't use the same way you do it on the pad out in the real world, and vice versa. If you're out in the real world, you can't 100%. I mean, you can use the same concept, but you can't do how you do in the real world out on the pad, because on the pad you have a time limit. You have only some. I mean, you can use pull-ups as many as you need, but it does take points after 2 for most of the maneuvers, and most of the maneuvers you only get to get out and looks. If you get out for a third time, you automatically fail. But in the real world, you don't have really a time limit. Of course, you want to be as quick as possible. Also, you want to, you can get out and look as many times. But so it's like a lot of things. It's like a catch 22, like I said. So I think honestly, if I could help with the program a little bit, what I would say is they need to do a week at the pad and then a week on the road, like in a truck for at least a week. That way they get in their 14 days, they're getting their backing experience, so they can kind of get control of the trailer and all that stuff on the pad, and comfortable with controlling the trailer and stuff like that before they get out there. And then they're getting some real world experience as well, a lot more real world experience. But that's just, my thing. When it was time to bring her back for her test, we brought her back, and well, I brought her back. I coordinated with my fleet manager. I was like, hey, whatever, can we get her back this time and schedule for her test for this time? And so I got back on a Saturday morning. So we had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to get ready. And I knew by I knew by Sunday if she was going to be ready or not. So she was getting the maneuvers. She got every single maneuver except for one. And most people like, oh, it was the alley dock. No, she was actually pretty good at getting the trailer in the alley dock. It was the offset to the right. I mean, excuse me, the parallel to the right. Parallel to the right, she just could not get that truck and trailer in there straight enough. Granted, she could have, taken points and all that stuff, but you always want to try to pass with minimal points. So, um, of course, I'm one of those type of people. I'm not gonna just like, okay, we'll just, we'll keep practicing and whatever it is on test day. No, I'm gonna go ask for help, especially since she was my first student. I want to know other ways I can teach students that maybe are having more challenges than she is or having the same issue. How can we fix it? So, I had a resource come over. Yeah, she came over and he showed us, told us what we needed to do. Once we got that done, he was like, she has great trailer control. She's really good at doing that. She's really good at doing certain things. He noticed that and complimented her on it. Then he was like, do you guys still need me for anything? And I was like, well, can you, the alley dock, because the parallel and the alley dock are the one that you get a choice. You don't get a choice, but you're going to get basically given one of those three for your last maneuver. So parallel to the left, parallel to the right, alley dock, and those are the ones you really want to know because you already know you're going to have an offset and you know you're going to have straight back, but you don't know one of the three. So you want to make sure you're really good on any one of those three. And so yeah, he's like, okay, let me see the alley dock. I told him about the alley dock and told her how she gets it in there. And so he showed her a way, and I had heard of this way, and I was even talking to my trainer about it. And he was like, no, that doesn't work. You got to turn the wheel. When I tell you the way that he showed my student, got it in there every single time without failing, every single time. Um, Barely had to use a pull up most of the time. So she was more confident. So we were able to do that parallel to the right quite a few more times, getting in there damn near perfect every single time. Alley docs every single time. So this was Monday because Sunday there wasn't really many people on the pad, but we were still practicing because we practiced 4 hours on. We did 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the afternoon and 2 hours in the evening on Saturday. On Sunday we did 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening. On Monday, another pad trainer got stuck out on the road, so he's like, "Hey, you can take my pad hours. It's not going to be used." And which turned out great because usually it's hard to get pad time before 5 o'clock on Monday through Friday. So we already had 2 hours, so we got a chance to get another 2 hours. And so she had 12 hours. We was gonna have 10 hours originally. She got 12 hours of pad training in before her test. So on the last day, we were doing our maneuvers. We did, we drove around a little bit because I was really confident in her driving. We just need to practice emergency stop, just practice, her turning and her driving with both hands, not talking because she's a talker like me. When she likes to talk with her hands, and on a test that can fail you. And then just wanted to practice that. Then we went through the in-cab inspection and went over one area. We actually went over two areas. We went on one area on Sunday, and I saw that she really didn't need no more, help with that. I just told her to study it, on her own time. And then we went over the in-cab and air brake test twice. I believe we did it on Sunday and Monday, just to iron out any kinks if she had any questions or whatever. And up until then, she was not nervous. But the in-cab and air brake inspection was the last thing we did before I told her, see you tomorrow morning for your test at 8:30, and 9 o'clock was the test. And she was not nervous up until I dismissed her for the day. And we even got out like 30 minutes early because she was getting things so much, and I didn't want to, I don't want to give her test anxiety. She was getting them. She was, I asked her, I said, do you want to go over? I feel confident. Do you feel confident? She was like, no, I'm good. Let's just go over the. She had, she wanted to go over the air brake test and in-cab inspection one more time. So yeah, cool, let's do it. Once I dismissed her and she was going about her day, she was like, I'm nervous. I was like, how are you nervous now? and stuff. So, we talked and calmed her down a little bit. The next morning, I woke up nervous. Like, I really couldn't sleep that morning because I had to record some episodes for my podcast, both my podcasts. So I was up early already. I could not go back to sleep. I was nervous. I had test anxiety for myself as if I was taking the test. It was my first student, so I felt like I was taking the test. So I went ahead and got to the testing area about 8:15. I'm texting, calling her, making sure she's up because I told her I was going to text and call her and make sure she was up, even though she's never been late to meeting me or nothing like that. So it was never an issue of that. So she wasn't answering. So I was like, oh shoot, please don't tell me she, overslept or she, she changed her mind, don't want to do it, or whatever. But then she walks in like at 8:20, and I was like, why didn't you answer my calls on my text message? She's like, oh, I just wanted to, worry you. I was like, girl, I'm already worrying enough. Don't worry, make me worry anymore. So needless to say, she's, to her time was coming. She was watching other people test, kind of watching other maneuvers, just going over stuff in her head. And she tried to be calm. I could tell she tried to be calm. She tried to uh, make it easier for her to remember certain things. But needless to say, it came time for her to test, so I had to go stage the truck on the testing pad. I stayed out there with her till the examiner came out, and uh, she was, nervous in the truck. But then I was like, you'll calm down once you start doing stuff. So the examiner came out, talked to me a little bit. I went inside, and the test began. So um, I'm not allowed to be on the pad when she's testing. I have to be in the building, so I really couldn't see from where I was at. And since I couldn't see, I had some people that was out there coming in and out. They were training their students to come into the restroom or, coming in for a break or whatever, and kind of just letting me know, how she was doing. Luckily, it was a beautiful day. 'Cause the other 2 days on the 3 days, well, 2.5 days on the pad, it was cold, windy, and cloudy. And one day it was misting, like it was off and on raining, but we only caught it when it was misting. Luckily, it was a sunny day for her test. So I was so nervous. Like I felt like I was taking the test myself. So I was trying to distract myself playing games on my phone or, um, I was texting my husband. I was, or I was trying to distract myself. Well, that only went so far. So then when one of my coworkers texted me, oh, she's in cab now. So I was like, okay, all right. So she got this. I'm good. So then, they said, later on they said, oh, she just got, offset to the right. So I was like, cool, she knows how to do that. Um, and they're like, oh, she's on the parallel. So I was like, okay, so she's passing her backing test. So then so then I see the examiner come in. So I was like, oh crap, I didn't see her. So I was like, okay, maybe she's still in the truck. So he's like, telling me to go inside my tandems for the road test. I was like, yeah, she's on to the road test. So I talked to her. She's like, can I go to the bathroom? I was like, yeah, go ahead, go to the bathroom, whatever. I got to drive the truck around anyway, so come on. So once we did that, she was so nervous. Like I felt so bad. She was so nervous. Um, Drove the truck around. And the examiner came out to, tell me a few more things, like things that uh, just some points that she got on the pre-trip, because I don't think she got any points on her backing. So get ready to go on the road trip. So at this point, I hadn't eaten nothing yet. I had like a protein drink and like a granola bar. So I haven't had really any food. So as they're getting ready to go on the road test, they pull out. I start getting real hungry. They say it's gonna take about 30 minutes for the road test. So I'm like a perfect time for me to eat. I'm allowed to be outside the building now. Blah blah blah. So they go out. I'm eating. I'm talking to a coworker of mine and his students that he just, getting ready to test out the next day, and just kind of helping talk to them about their experience, what they're nervous about, all that. So they come back. I'm eating. I was like, okay. So I was like getting excited and blah 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 blah. And they pull up to the little, the waiting area, like right in front of the building, and they're inside talking. So um, I'm just like sitting there waiting. A few seconds go by. I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna get out. They're gonna get out. Because she came back driving the truck. That's a good sign. The instructor didn't come back driving the truck. Um, I mean, the examiner didn't come back driving the truck. Okay, so that's a good sign. All right, so they're still sitting in the truck. Like almost a whole 5 minutes goes by, and I was like, you know what? I'm losing my appetite. I had such anxiety that day. I'm losing like when she got her backing test though, I was pretty good when she got her backing done because I knew she was good on driving. So when I tell you, I threw my food away and I was like halfway done. I could not eat anymore. I was like, I had so much anxiety. I was like, man, what if she got that far and then, she got to come back to take her driving test tomorrow? Okay, so we come back. I go back in the building, and then the examiner walks in. He doesn't say anything. He's like, just meet me at that table where that behind that clipboard is. I was like, okay. And I come in with her. I was like, so did you pass? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, why your face don't look like it? She looked like, she's like, no, we were just talking. So I was just thinking about everything he said. So when I sit down, of course, it's a thing to sign up for the trifecta. So I was like, yes, she passed. She really did. She passed. Okay, great. So, um, so when she passed, we signed some paperwork. She had to sign some paperwork, fill out paperwork, and she got hired on. And they told her next steps. And all in all, my first student, I will say, uh, was it was a good experience. I didn't have a lot of issues. I didn't have to tell her a lot of stuff like to get her to do the things I needed her to do. So my first student was great, as the PSD portion goes. So uh, I was going to do another PSD, but then I decided I want to try the TNT portion. So now I'm on TNT. So it's starting. So once it finishes or gets halfway through, I'll discuss that. It's almost like a team truck, so I'm familiar with it. Um, I would say it's definitely different because when you PSD, it's a little bit more stressful because I'm letting somebody drive my truck that's never driven a truck before. And I know Prime does background checks and they, check, your driving record and all that stuff, but it's still, someone's never driven a truck before. It's a dangerous piece of equipment. Can be at least. And so I'm letting somebody else drive my truck. So, and teach them how to drive it correctly. So that's just one of the things that I was really dealing with as PSD instructor. So I just wanted to kind of go into my new endeavor. As I'm 40, I'm always looking for ways to improve, just like I'm looking for ways to improve anybody else in my life. Like if they, trying to give them ideas on what they can do or, how to help them, motivate them to do more in life if they're looking to do more in life and stuff like that. So, um, that's the end of that diva moment. It was a long one, but that one I really had a story to tell, and I didn't want to really do it in an episode. So I didn't give my 20 in the beginning of my moment. So my 20 is I am in New Mexico, about 80 miles west of the Arizona border. So, what's your 20?